Okay, great. Okay, so let's take a look at. We're gonna take a look at some of Yareli's idle animations first, and then we'll hop in game. Just because I think
These
we
are
want
always
to,
so fun.
yeah, we want to introduce you to Yareli. So I've taken a few looping videos here of her in game. So why don't we kick things off with Yareli?
Cool.
All right, here she is,
Oh, you put her on the beach.
and this is her being the cutest Warframe ever.
That's cool.
Yeah. How do we see what chat saying she's cute? So cute. Yeah. I'm already a Yareli main. Yep. Super cute. We have a lot of her idols are just brimming with. I think Pablo was very clear on the kawaii aspects of Yareli. So.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I'm not exactly a fan of this. Who on earth would ever want something this degenerate? Wait a minute.
The next station will be Fortuna 69.
Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. The Sisters of Parvos update has recently arrived, and with it, a pretty decent chunk of stuff. Now, if you're the kind of person that was burned off from Warframe within the last year or so because of Railjack or Kuva Liches being unsavory, you might be wondering if anything substantial has been done since then. As someone who has spent a considerable amount of time not playing Warframe, the announcement that guns would be getting buffed and melee weapons would be getting quote-unquote nerfed was enough to catch my attention. Since I'm still waiting for the day when DE decides to grow a pair of balls and finally nuke the Riven market, as unlikely as it is. You can tell by the way I've worded it that melee weapons haven't been hit as hard as others would have you believe. If you two are part of the heavy attack gang, then you're fine. Trust me, heavy attack builds are still totally fine and busted. I'll make a quick recap. But to put it very simply, although I personally think that both Railjack and Kuva Liches have been remarkably improved since their release back in 2019, and I also do think it's great that Lich boss fights finally take place within Railjack, the problem is that if you're still waiting for Railjack to connect the star chart together, as was shown in TennoCon 2019, you're going to have to keep waiting, because it's not quite there yet. But don't get me wrong though, Liches are certainly easier and faster to complete than ever before, thanks to the new items which have been added to the game with this update, and the Lich system itself is pretty close to what the original concept was, where the final fight takes place on board a ship within Railjack. But obviously, what we have currently in-game is still not what DE had originally envisioned for Railjack. Speaking of Railjack, tweaks to it over the past year and some change have been, actually, nice. The addition of NPC crewmates have made playing Railjack without any friends or clanmates an option. Although honestly the AI really leaves something to be desired, unless you're only using your NPC crew as gunners and nothing else. The addition of Valence Fusion has helped to curb down on the original clusterfuck, which was Railjack RNG from launch, and the overall restructuring of Railjack to be more of a traditional mod screen has helped to simplify things. But that does not mean that applying Forma is now a thing. Although Railjack is significantly simpler to understand compared to what it was on release, applying Forma to Railjack is a thing now, but thankfully only 1 or 2 Forma are truly necessary. I know that it doesn't mean much coming from me, but trust me when I say that applying Forma to Railjack isn't that bad. Or at least, not as bad as dealing with the bullshit that is applying Forma to Necromechs. Overall, the improvements to Railjack and the Lich system have definitely helped without a doubt. But is it enough to warrant a second chance from anyone who left back in 2019? Maybe. It sort of depends on the person in question. If you're one of those people who are waiting for the Warframe storyline to make any form of progress or development, you're going to be disappointed. Sisters of Parvos definitely brings new things to play around with, mostly new weapons, but otherwise, all of us are still in the new war waiting room. Make no mistake, however, there are some good things being brought. The companion system is being improved, so the DNA stability and loyalty mechanics will no longer be in the game, meaning the companions no longer require maintenance of any kind, just like Sentinels. The Parazon is getting reworked. Kind of. So now the Parazon is easier to get mercy kills with. Kind of. And also there are new mods for the Parazon which are useful. Kind of. Look, maybe it's just me, but I don't care about the Parazon, nor will I ever. The Parazon is used for only 3 things: hacking, killing your lich, and mercy kills. All 3 of those things are aspects of gunning. Killing liches is only done to get their weapons for mastery rank, and nothing else. And mercy kills are almost pointless, given that it's very easy to accidentally kill an enemy that becomes opened up for a mercy kill. As someone who has a gun for a melee weapon, why should I bother trying to mercy kill a single enemy, when in the time it takes to mercy kill one, I could kill more than one? But I digress. As I said earlier, the nerfs to melee aren't as abysmal as others would have you believe. Partly because Riven mods are still here to fuck things up, and partly because the only melee mods being targeted for nerfs are the big 3 of the bunch: Berserker, Condition Overload, and Blood Rush. Again, if you too are a heavy attack Chad, then do not worry. We are still secretly better than people realize. Anyway, assuming that you don't rely on melee builds using a combination of those mods, then you're fine. It's already been proven that melee weapons are still laughably stronger than guns. That aside, the buffs given to guns are questionable, I would say. Galvanized mods I have no problem with, because although the base stats are lower than normal, it can stack to greater amounts, so long as the player can keep getting kills. There are people who dislike this because in higher level content, getting kills to keep maintaining your stacks without a Warframe that can reliably remove armor, or without Rivens that deal tons of damage, can become a bit more of a problem. Personally, as somebody who plays Vauban, the stacking mechanics of galvanized mods don't bother me. But just because it's not a problem for me doesn't mean it isn't for other players. So I can still understand and agree with why some people are frustrated with on-kill mechanics on guns. Changing galvanized mods to on-hit mechanics is a proposed solution. But I feel like by doing so, DE would have to lower the stack duration to compensate. Otherwise, galvanized mods would just be a straight upgrade, similar to primed mods. However, I can't say the same thing for arcanes. I understand the point of primary and secondary arcanes is to make better guns. But I think that their execution suffers from a similar problem as galvanized mods, since these arcanes have the same on-kill requirements. Playing in higher level content without a reliable means of stripping armor or without a Riven can become an issue. That being said, it is very obvious which of these arcanes will be meta. I'll let you look at these for yourself and decide. Correct. Arcane Merciless is ridiculously weak because its stack duration is so low that you're actually shooting yourself in the foot if you're using literally any weapon with a long reload time. Arcane Deadhead is fine as it is, but not everyone will care or bother with trying to get headshots. So while it's certainly going to be more popular than Arcane Deadhead, I don't think it'll be as meta as Arcane Dexterity, which only demands the player to get melee kills in exchange for increased gun damage. And as we all know by now, melee is just superior to using guns. On top of that, for whatever reason, primary and secondary arcanes are the only ones in the game that the player has to unlock first before actually using them. So the question is, if the point of arcanes is to put guns on the same playing field as melee weapons, why are only gun arcanes locked? It's bad enough that guns don't benefit from combo multipliers or from increased mod capacity via stance mods. So why exactly are only gun arcanes put behind a wall just to unlock them? Exilus mods, for example, have to be unlocked by the player prior to using them. But that's fine, because most Exilus mods aren't a required part of a build. Not to mention that unlike primary or secondary arcanes, all weapons and warframes in the game have to have its Exilus slots unlocked to be used, instead of just a specific category. If you ask me, gun arcanes should either be unlocked from the start, just like every other arcane in the game, or DE should just double down and lock all other arcane slots in the game. Otherwise, it just seems kind of nonsensical to lock gun arcanes, and only gun arcanes, behind an arbitrary wall. On the topic of walls, this is something I will get into later, because I think this little tumor warrants its own video, and I'd rather not stretch this out longer than need be. Those are just my thoughts. Take care of yourselves. Be excellent to each other. And as always, thank you for watching.